to execute on an agenda. As we know, President Trump has threatened New York City. If we dare stand up to him, the people of New York came together and we said, you don't threaten New York. And we're going to step up and we're going to make sure that we get baby boxes to every parent. And we're going to try to make healthcare more affordable. And we're going to bring down the cost of groceries. And we're not going to we're going to stand up to bullies and thugs in the White House. And that's what our charge is today. Yeah. But it's going to take every single one of us as New Yorkers.
Okay, so you need to see what just happened, because this is one of those moments that's going to be replayed in political highlight reels for years. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, AOC, just absolutely destroyed a key Trump witness during a televised congressional hearing. And I'm not using destroyed lightly here. I mean, she systematically dismantled their testimony, exposed contradictions, and triggered what can only be described as a live collapse of the GOP's entire legal strategy. While millions of viewers watched it happen in real time, this wasn't some partisan back and forth where both sides claimed victory. This was a public evisceration, a moment where facts met spin and spin lost badly. We're talking November 2025, a high-profile House oversight hearing that was supposed to be the GOP's chance to defend Trump and push back against the investigations. They brought in what they thought was a star witness, someone who would validate their narrative and give them ammunition heading into the 2026 midterms. Instead, that witness got absolutely obliterated on live television and took the Republican legal strategy down with them. But before we go any further, real quick, let's be honest, you can't really trust mainstream media anymore. That's why we built Pump Politics, to bring you real stories, real context, and no corporate spin. If you want to stay ahead of the headlines, join our free newsletter. We'll send the news straight to your inbox every day. Just click the link in the description to join. And if you just want to support what we're doing, join us, be part of the community that actually cares about the truth. All right, let's get back to the video.
So important for folks to understand is that this problem is bigger than one person, and it actually is bigger than the minority leader in the Senate. And Senate Democrats have selected their leadership to represent them. And so the question needs to be bigger than just one person. We have several Senate primaries this cycle. I know I'm being asked about New York. That is years from now. I have to remind my own constituents because they think that this election is this year. We actually do have Senate elections this year. And my hope is that people across this country actually participate in their primary elections in selecting their leadership.
Here's how it went down. AOC had the floor for her questioning period. And instead of the typical congressional theater, where members give speeches disguised as questions, she came prepared with receipts, detailed documents, call records, internal memos, the kind of evidence you bring when you're not interested in political points. You're interested in facts. She started by asking the witness to confirm statements they made under oath in previous testimony. Basic stuff. The witness thought they were on safe ground, probably figured they could stick to the script their lawyers prepared. But then AOC started comparing those sworn statements to contemporaneous records, phone logs showing calls that supposedly never happened, emails contradicting claims about who knew what and when, internal GOP memos that directly contradicted the public story the witness was trying to sell. And with each contradiction, with each piece of evidence that didn't match the testimony, you could see the witness starting to unravel on camera. The key moment, the one that's going viral across every platform, came when AOC asked about specific data points, numbers that the witness had cited in previous testimony to support their version of events, and AOC showed with documents right there that those numbers were wrong, not just slightly off, completely fabricated. The witness tried to backtrack, tried to say they were misremembered or taken out of context, but AOC wasn't having it. She kept pressing, kept showing more evidence, and finally the witness contradicted their own earlier sworn testimony right there on live TV. They essentially admitted they'd been lying. Multiple House Republicans tried to interrupt. They kept calling for points of order, trying to run interference, claiming AOC was badgering the witness or that her questions were improper. But none of it worked because the damage was already done. The witness had collapsed. The contradictions were on the record, and everyone watching could see exactly what had happened. The cable news and digital platforms were showing this exchange live. Twitter, or X, or whatever we're calling it now, was exploding with clips. The quote that's going everywhere is AOC saying data doesn't lie, no matter how much they try to spin it. That line is perfect because it captures exactly what just happened. The GOP strategy has been built on spin, on controlling the narrative, on having their witnesses stick to talking points, regardless of what the evidence shows. But when you're confronted with actual data, with call logs and emails and memos that prove you're lying, spin doesn't work anymore. Facts win. And in this case, facts absolutely demolished the Republican defense. Political strategists from both parties are acknowledging this hearing as a turning point, not in the usual partisan way where Democrats claim victory and Republicans deny anything happened. Even GOP strategists, speaking anonymously to reporters, are admitting this was a disaster, that the witnesses' credibility is in tatters, that their legal strategy has been exposed and is now in full retreat. Commentators are pointing to this as a public collapse of GOP legal messaging going into the 2026 election cycle. Think about the timing. We're less than a year from midterms. Republicans were hoping to use these hearings to shift the narrative, to make the Trump investigations look like partisan witch hunts, to give their candidates something to point to and say, see, there's nothing there. Instead, they just handed Democrats the perfect soundbite, the perfect example of how Republican defenses crumble when confronted with actual evidence. AOC, love her or hate her, just became the face of data-driven oversight, the representative who shows up with receipts and isn't afraid to use them. That's powerful. That's the kind of moment that defines careers and shifts political dynamics. For the GOP, this is a nightmare scenario. They put forward what was supposed to be a credible witness, someone who would bolster their position and give them cover. And that witness got destroyed so thoroughly on national television that it makes every other defense they've offered look suspect. If this witness was lying, if their testimony was fabricated, what about all the other witnesses? What about all the other claims Republicans have been making? The whole house of cards starts to look shaky, and voters are going to remember this moment. They're going to remember watching a witness contradict themselves, watching Republicans scramble to defend the indefensible, watching AOC calmly present evidence while the other side melted down. That's the kind of political theater that actually moves public opinion, because it's not just rhetoric, it's demonstrable proof caught on camera. So let's break down exactly what happened in that hearing room and why it matters so much for what comes next. All right, so let's get into the specifics of this hearing, because understanding the details is crucial to grasping why this moment is so significant. House oversight hearings are usually pretty predictable. Members from both parties ask questions that are really just speeches. Witnesses give carefully prepared answers that don't actually answer anything. The party in power tries to score points. The minority tries to obstruct, and nothing of substance really happens. But every once in a while, maybe once or twice a Congress if you're lucky, you get a hearing where something real breaks through, where actual facts emerge, where someone gets caught in a lie they can't escape. This was one of those hearings. The witness, and we're getting their name from the CBS coverage and other mainstream outlets, was brought in by Republicans, specifically to counter the narrative around Trump's legal troubles. This person was supposed to testify that Trump did nothing wrong, that the investigations are politically motivated, that there's no evidence of the crimes he's accused of. They had already given testimony in closed-door depositions. They made public statements supporting Trump. They were seen as credible enough that Republicans were confident putting them in front of cameras during a high-profile hearing. That confidence was misplaced. AOC came into that hearing with a thick folder of documents. Staffers had done their homework. They pulled call records. They'd obtained internal memos. They cross-referenced the witness's previous statements with contemporaneous evidence, and they found discrepancies, lots of them. AOC started her questioning calmly, almost conversationally. She asked the witness to confirm statements they made in their deposition. Can you verify that you said X? Yes. And you also testified that Y happened on this date? Yes. The witness probably thought this was going fine, just confirming things they'd already said. No surprises. Then AOC shifted. She pulled out a call log, phone records showing that on the date in question, the date the witness claimed they had no contact with certain individuals, there were actually multiple calls, long calls that lasted 20 or 30 minutes. She asked the witness to explain. The witness tried to say they didn't remember those calls, that maybe they were brief and insignificant. AOC pressed. She showed more records, emails sent right after those calls, discussing what was said. The witness started to squirm, started hedging their answers, started saying things like, I may have misspoken earlier, or I'd have to review my records to be sure. That's when you know someone's in trouble, when they start walking back sworn testimony in real time, when they go from confident assertions to maybes and I'd have to checks. But AOC wasn't done. She moved to the next discrepancy. The witness had testified that certain meetings never happened, that they were never involved in discussions about blocking congressional subpoenas or coordinating legal strategy. AOC produced internal GOP memos showing the witness was not only at those meetings, but was taking notes, was assigned action items, was actively participating in the strategy sessions they claimed never occurred. The witness tried a different tack, said those meetings were about legitimate legislative work, not about obstructing investigations. AOC asked them to explain what legitimate legislative purpose would require coordinating how to respond to subpoenas about potential crimes. The witness didn't have a good answer, started talking in circles, and that's when Republican committee members started freaking out. You could see it on camera, members interrupting with points of order, claiming AOC was badgering the witness, saying her questions were argumentative or outside the scope of the hearing. The committee chair, who's a Republican, was clearly uncomfortable, trying to maintain order while also not wanting to look like he was protecting a witness who was obviously lying. But the rules of congressional hearings are pretty clear. During your allotted time, you get to ask questions, and unless you're being abusive or way off topic, the chair has to let you continue. AOC knew the rules. She stayed within them, and she kept pressing. The breaking point came when she confronted the witness about data they'd cited, specific numbers about timeline and participation in various events. The witness had used these numbers in previous testimony to establish their credibility, to show they had detailed knowledge of what happened. AOC showed that the numbers were wrong. She had the actual data, the real statistics, and they completely contradicted what the witness had claimed. She asked very directly, "Did you verify these numbers before testifying under oath?" The witness stammered, said they relied on their recollection. AOC pointed out that they presented the numbers very specifically down to exact figures, which suggested they weren't relying on memory but on documents. So where did the documents come from? Were they provided by Trump's legal team? Were they fabricated? The witness couldn't give a coherent answer, and in trying to explain themselves, they contradicted their earlier sworn testimony. They essentially admitted that yes, the numbers were provided by others, and no, they didn't verify them independently. That's perjury. That's a witness admitting they testified to facts they knew or should have known were false. The moment that admission came out, you could see the energy in the room shift. Republican members looked stricken. Democratic members looked energized, and the witness looked like they wanted to disappear. AOC wrapped up by saying something like, and I'm paraphrasing because we don't have the exact transcript yet, but essentially she said this is what happens when you build a defense on lies instead of facts. Data doesn't lie no matter how much they try to spin it. That line is going to be quoted forever. It's already trending on every social media platform. It's being used in Democratic campaign materials. It's the kind of soundbite that defines a political moment because it's both true and devastating. After AOC's time expired and committee members from both parties took their turns questioning the witness, the damage was done. The witness's credibility was destroyed. Their testimony was worthless. And worse, their collapse on live television made every other part of the GOP's legal strategy look suspect. If this witness was lying, if their testimony was coordinated with Trump's team and based on fabricated data, what about other witnesses? What about other claims Republicans have been making about the investigations? The whole narrative starts to unravel. Media coverage of the hearing has been brutal for Republicans. Even outlets that usually try to both sides everything are acknowledging this was a disaster. Headlines like GOP witness collapses under questioning and legal strategy in tatters after AOC grilling. Political analysts are calling it one of the most effective pieces of congressional oversight they've seen in years. And it's not just Democrats saying that. Republican strategists, speaking anonymously because they don't want to publicly criticize their own side, are telling reporters this was a catastrophic failure, that whoever vetted this witness should be fired, that putting someone on national TV who couldn't defend their own testimony was political malpractice of the highest order. The social media amplification has been massive. Clips of the exchange have millions of views. People are creating memes and mashups. The witnesses' face when they realize they've been caught is becoming iconic, and AOC's calm, methodical questioning is being held up as an example of how oversight should work. Not grandstanding, not speechifying, just presenting evidence and asking questions and letting the facts speak for themselves. This matters for the 2026 midterms in a huge way. Democrats now have proof captured on video that Republican defenses of Trump are built on lies. They have a witness who collapsed under basic questioning. They have evidence that the GOP has been coordinating fabricated testimony. That's powerful campaign material. It's the kind of thing you can show to independent voters and say, this is what we're up against. This is why accountability matters. This is why facts matter. And it's going to be very hard for Republicans to counter because the evidence is right there. Everyone saw it happen live. Okay, so let's break down what this actually means going forward and why this one hearing could have such massive ripple effects across the political landscape. First, the immediate legal implications. A witness who contradicts their own sworn testimony on the record has basically destroyed any value they had to either side. Republicans can't use this person anymore. Their credibility is gone. Any future testimony they give will be immediately impeached by pointing to this hearing. But it's worse than just losing one witness. This collapse raises questions about how this witness was prepared. Who told them what to say? Who provided the fabricated data they cited? If Trump's legal team was involved in coordinating false testimony, that's suborning perjury. That's a separate crime. That's the kind of thing that gets lawyers disbarred and potentially prosecuted. So now investigators are going to be looking into how this witness got their information, who they were communicating with, whether there was a coordinated effort to present false evidence to Congress. That opens up whole new lines of investigation that could implicate more people in Trump's circle. Second, the political fallout for the GOP. This hearing was supposed to help Republicans. It was supposed to give them ammunition to use against Democrats. Instead, it became a viral moment, showing their strategy collapsing in real time. That's devastating. Heading into an election year, every Republican candidate is now going to have to answer questions about this. Did you watch the hearing? Do you still believe Trump did nothing wrong? Do you think the witness was lying, or were they just mistaken? There's no good answer to those questions. If you say the witness was lying, you're admitting the GOP defense is built on lies. If you say they were just mistaken, you're admitting the defense is incompetent. Either way, you lose. Democrats are going to hammer this in every competitive race. They're going to run ads showing clips of the witness contradicting themselves, showing Republicans trying to defend the indefensible, showing AOC calmly presenting facts while the other side melts down. That's devastating political content because it's not partisan spin. It's just footage of what actually happened. Third, what this means for AOC's political future. She's been a controversial figure since she got elected. The left loves her, the right hates her, moderates have been mixed, but this hearing is the kind of moment that transcends partisan labels, because what she did wasn't particularly liberal or conservative, it was just effective. She showed up prepared, she asked good questions, she had evidence, she got results. That's what voters say they want from their representatives, regardless of ideology, and it positions AOC as more than just a progressive firebrand. It shows she can be a serious legislator, someone who does the work, someone who holds people accountable. That's going to make her a more formidable figure going forward. She's always had a strong social media presence and grassroots support. Now she's adding proven effectiveness in high-stakes situations. That's a powerful combination. Fourth, the broader question of accountability and evidence-based governance. One of the themes of modern politics is this tension between narrative and facts, between spin and reality. Politicians on both sides try to control the story, try to frame things in ways that benefit them. And often they succeed because the media environment is so fractured that people can live in different information bubbles. But moments like this, hearing break through those bubbles. When you have a witness contradicting themselves on live TV, when you have indisputable documentary evidence showing someone is lying, that's harder to spin away. Facts matter, data matters, evidence matters, and this hearing is a vivid demonstration of that principle. It shows what happens when you try to build a political defense on fabricated testimony instead of truth. Eventually, someone shows up with receipts and your whole story collapses. That's a valuable lesson for voters. It shows that oversight works when done properly, that accountability is possible when people are willing to do the hard work of gathering evidence and asking tough questions. Fifth, what comes next in the investigations? This hearing doesn't exist in isolation. It's part of ongoing investigations into Trump's actions. Multiple committees are looking into different aspects of his conduct. DOJ has active cases. State prosecutors are pursuing charges. And this hearing just gave all of them more ammunition, because now they know the GOP defense strategy involves coordinating witness testimony and using fabricated data. That means they need to scrutinize every witness more carefully, cross-check every claim, verify every number. It makes their job harder in some ways, but it also tells them where to look. If this witness was given false information to testify to who else was given similar information, are there other witnesses who've testified to facts they didn't independently verify? Finding those witnesses and getting them to admit it could create more collapses like we saw in this hearing. Meanwhile, Trump's legal team is probably in crisis mode. They just watched one of their witnesses get destroyed on national television. They have to assume other witnesses are going to face similar questioning. They have to prepare for the possibility that more fabricated testimony will be exposed. That puts them in an impossible position. Do they keep putting forward witnesses knowing they might collapse? Do they try to limit testimony and risk looking like they're hiding something? Do they try to discredit AOC and others who are doing effective oversight, knowing that looks defensive and guilty? None of those options are good. They're all bad in different ways. And that's what happens when your strategy is based on deception instead of facts. Eventually, the lies catch up with you, and you're left with nothing but bad options. 4. Congress as an institution. This is actually a positive moment, because for all the criticism about political theater and partisan gridlock, this hearing showed that congressional oversight can work, that when members take their responsibility seriously and come prepared with evidence, they can get real results, they can expose wrongdoing, they can hold powerful people accountable. That's what the founders envisioned when they created the system of checks and balances. The legislative branch is supposed to oversee the executive branch, is supposed to investigate misconduct, is supposed to bring facts to light. This hearing is an example of that system working as intended. And while it's rare, while most hearings don't produce moments like this, the fact that it happened at all shows the system isn't completely broken. For the public, this hearing matters because it demonstrates that facts still matter. In an era of alternative facts and competing narratives, where people can choose which reality they want to live in, seeing someone get caught in lies on live television is clarifying. It reminds us that truth exists, that evidence is real, that you can't just make things up and expect to get away with it forever. Eventually, someone will call your bluff. Eventually, you'll be confronted with data that contradicts your story. And when that happens, when facts meet fiction, facts win. That's an important message for democracy, because democracy requires a shared reality. It requires that people can agree on basic facts, even if they disagree about what those facts mean, or what should be done about them. When we lose the ability to agree on what's true, when everything becomes spin and narrative, democracy breaks down. Moments like this, hearing pushback against that breakdown, they reassert that truth matters, evidence matters, accountability matters. So yeah, this is a big deal. This isn't just one bad day for one witness. This is a pivotal moment that could reshape the investigations into Trump, energize Democratic campaigns heading into the midterms, elevate AOC's national profile, and demonstrate that effective oversight is still possible in our polarized political environment. Watch how this develops. Watch whether more witnesses face similar scrutiny and whether more fabricated testimony gets exposed. Watch how Republicans try to recover from this disaster. Watch how Democrats capitalize on it, and watch whether this moment actually moves public opinion or whether partisan divisions are so deep that even this kind of clear-cut evidence doesn't matter to some people, because that's the real test. Not whether facts exist, we know they do, but whether facts still have the power to change minds and shape outcomes. We're about to find out. More on this as it develops, because trust me, this story is just getting started.